Hey there internets, I'm Michael and this is Toucan Play That Game, bringing you a review of T.I.M.E Stories, and this is our spoiler-free review. We will have a spoiler review coming soon, so just to make clear, anything you see in this video is immediate knowledge. There's nothing that is a secret or a surprise. So that means I'm not particularly going to be talking much about the Asylum story. No, it's more the overall mechanics, artwork and components, etc. that I'll be discussing here. So let's start with, what is T.I.M.E Stories? Well, let's look at the box. It's a metal thing in white. Yeah, this is probably the blankest box I've ever seen on a board game. Really does not show you much at all. But the name does tell you more. T.I.M.E Stories. It is about stories throughout time. The idea is that you are all members of this time agency, which is Toucan something or other, and you are going into these receptacles that are people in other times and places. So it's not just about time travel, it's also about space travel. So you could have one set on distant worlds, alternate realities, anything. They've left it very wide open, but for the time being, the majority of the stories seem to be about just travelling backwards in time. Of course, there could be forwards in time. We never know what will come with this. But for the moment, we do know what there is. And the idea is that you go into these receptacles to fix things that other people are breaking. You're trying to keep the timeline safe. So it's very much kind of Quantum Leap, but with a group of people. Now, how does this all actually work? Well, I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail. If you do want to learn how to play the game, I have already done a video on that, and you can go watch that, and there is a link in the description. What I will say is that you have this board here, and this is kind of your console that you plug cards into to give your locations. You will have a character that you are inhabiting with different skills and abilities, and you will move throughout locations dictated by cards. Different locations will result in different things. Some are simply story aspects that will say, you know, you found this information, take an item, you found this clue, you know this tidbit of what's going on in the story. Others might have challenges that you need to overcome using your character's abilities. That's done by rolling dice here. Now, the whole game comes down to the whole time mechanic thing. Everything you do costs time, and there's only a certain amount of time that you're able to inhabit these receptacles for. And that's what gives a sense of urgency and pressure to actually trying to resolve this. Otherwise, you could just keep going forever and ever and ever without any real fear or worry. So that is the game. There is status effects, items, etc. But as I say, I'm not going to go into too much detail. So let's talk about the aesthetics of the game first. Well, artwork-wise, the box really doesn't tell us much about the artwork. What gives us a better indication of the artwork is the rulebook here, with this lovely picture here of the time agency where you start out every story. Now, obviously this is very futuristic, and each story has its own feel to the cards and artwork of the locations that it's in. But for the most part, it is very attractive, very pretty, very stunning artwork throughout the game. Now, the board itself is actually very art missing. It is graphic design, and it is very functional. It's very clear what everything is and what it does. So let's talk now component-wise. So I've got the board here, so let's talk about this board. It is gigantic. I'm not going to try and unfold it completely. You can always watch my unboxing to see more, or watch the how-to video. But it is good quality cardboard, it will last well. And of course, they need it to last well because they're going to be bringing out tons of expansions for this, and the board is pretty much the main thing you need from this. It's the box, the board, the dice, all the tokens. That is what you need from this base set to play the expansions. The only thing that you're not needing is the cards. And that's why the cards are actually really flimsy, cheap quality cards. Because the game has such limited replay value, you're going to play through a story once and you're never going to touch it again. They don't need these to be high quality, hard wearing cards. And so they haven't wasted any money making them that way. So that I do like. Now, the main kind of component that has had a lot of criticism throughout the board game community so far is this insert here. Now, earlier print runs, this one is actually fine, but earlier print runs, these inserts were incredibly fragile, and so most of them arrived broken, shattered into pieces. They have since made better inserts, and I think this is one of them, and so that is good. One issue I do have with this insert is you're meant to keep this little token here in these slots here. However, if you do, it's a nightmare trying to get it out. So I have not been doing that. If you save your game, however, you need to keep it in there. So what else is there to talk about? Well, you've got all these wooden pillars. These are fine. It's kind of a bit of a pain, the ones you have in front of you. They knock over, they roll around. They didn't need to be pillars. I don't really know why they've done that. Maybe just for storing in the box here. But yeah, that feels wasteful. Also, having to stick the stickers on yourself, I don't like doing that, to be honest, because I'm not very good at getting it even, and I dislike when it's not even. They could have just had painted pillars rather than stickers. They could have just had tokens. They don't even need these pillars. I don't understand the pillars. I really don't. But they're good quality wood. The dice are good quality wooden dice as well. So that's all fine. And then these cardboard tokens here for the different states are good, fine, as well as all the other tokens. The shield space in the box here is a bit limited, but again, good quality on all the pieces there. Now, what I do want to kind of criticise slightly component-wise is this rulebook. It's big and unwieldy with this giant flimsy everywhere. Makes it very difficult to read initially, makes it very difficult to reference while playing. Also, I found the rulebook a chore to read. This game is not that complex, and yet the rulebook makes it so difficult to actually learn it and get into playing. So that's all my thoughts on the components. Now, what about the actual gameplay itself then? Well, it is unique to a certain point. It's pretty much a choose your own adventure. I don't know if you ever played these as a child where, you go to page 100, you read what that page says, and then it gives you options for what you do next. That's pretty much what you have here. You're presented with a location. You choose which of those location cards to go to, and then you go, aha, right, this told me this information. Well, let's now go to this location. So it's very much an interactive story. This whole dexploration mechanic, as they're calling it, is unique. It is innovative. It is interesting. However, to me, this is like one of those old computer games. And I think it was like Invasion of the Giant Ants or something I remember playing as a kid, where it was all very much still images and you just click on a part of the image that you could see. And that's basically what you're doing with these cards. You're clicking there and then you're turning it over to read it. And it is exactly like those computer games. So the innovation there isn't any. The fact that it's converted to a board game is innovative, but the actual gameplay itself isn't. There are computer games that have been doing it since I was a child. And frankly, it's easier as a computer game. But that said, some people obviously love this whole interactive story thing. Now, to me, one thing that's meant that I am so late to this game is I don't like the fact that it has this limited replay value. And okay, yes, you can reuse the base game because you get new stories to play through, but that's paying more money. I would rather have a game that I can just play the game time and time again without paying any more money. Now, that's my opinion. Other people will enjoy it. As I say, the whole idea of this exploration, etc., is different with regards to a board game. I think it works better as a computer game. Now, there is one thing I would say. There actually isn't a lot of game per se to this. With regards to, you know, collecting resources or any other number of mechanics that you have typically in a game, the only thing really making this a game, rather than simply turning over cards and exploring a deck of cards, is the dice and the challenges there. And that feels like not really a lot of game there. There's a lot of decisions in this, don't get me wrong. But when it comes to actually playing a game, it doesn't feel so much like a game as an experience. Now, it's not a bad experience necessarily. I think it very much will depend on the story and how that story appeals to you. But yeah, as you can tell, my thoughts on T.I.M.E Stories are pretty much all over the place. There are some good aspects to this, good innovation, but I just feel it's not the game for me, you know, and that's a shame. But I'm glad that I have had the opportunity to try it, and I'm glad that we are giving this away in Toucan Win That Game. And that is why we've got two boxes here, because this is the unopened box. That is the first prize, and then obviously the open box here that I'm talking about is going to be our second prize. So if you want to also be able to try this game and do so for free, be sure to enter our competition, and there is a link in the description. However, the competition will be closing at midnight on the 20th of June, so make sure you do check it out before then. Okay, I do hope this video has been useful. If it's all been a bit vague on how the game actually works and my opinions of the game, part of that is avoiding the spoilers. As I've said, mechanically, it is an interesting game. What I haven't yet talked about is scaling, and there's a reason for that, because it plays 2 to 4 people, but because of the co-op nature, you control multiple people. It's not really a scaling mechanic. It works fine for 2. It's the same game, you just have less input from different people. It is better having more people, but 2 can play it just fine. So do check out the rest of my videos. As I say, if you do want to kind of see more of my thoughts of the actual adventure that you play in this base game, there will be a spoiler review coming soon. And so do be sure to subscribe if you want to see that, as well as the rest of the videos on the channel. And do also check out the rest of the videos on the channel and share them with your friends and family. And please do take a look at us on social media. You can find us on Facebook and on Twitter. And as always, thanks for watching, and bye for now.